Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Earth Game Podcast. I am your host, Monica, and on this podcast, we talk about pretty much anything that can help you along your journey through this game that we call life here on beautiful planet Earth. I can't say I've been in a funk. Last week, if you watched my Instagram stories, you saw that I sat down to film an episode for you guys, and the words were not flowing. It was so ironic because the topic that I wanted to talk about was about alignment, because I got asked a really interesting question and I wanted to talk about it, and the words just were not flowing. And depending on my week, depending on my schedule, like how busy I am and things that I have going on, sometimes I only have one time slot that is available to record, and that's how it went last week. And so I just didn't post a recording because I sat there and I actually did try to force it. Like, I did try to just, turn my brain off and like let the words flow, and it was just very not natural, and it was a little bit forceful. So I was like, this is just a little bit ironic, and I think this is a sign here. I think this means something. And I just didn't post anything last week. So we are back. I'm still deciding if I want to do like a holiday break or something. I know a lot of people that have a podcast, they'll do like a holiday break, and I'm just in my cozy sweats, and I was really, really excited to record this week's episode all about my healing journey and just letting you guys really ask me questions. And I think I want to do more of these Q&A style episodes. I like watching other people's Q&A style episodes for a podcast or just like a YouTube video. So I feel like this is just really fun, and if it feels aligned, I'll go back to the other topic that I had for last week. But again, like, I don't want to force it. I think there's a lesson in there for me. So, and shout out to Juiceland. I went to Juiceland today. So I'm still deciding if there's going to be a holiday break or not, but we shall see. If anything, I'll do like the last couple weeks of next month of December before going into the new year, just to give myself a little bit of a break. I'm not going on a holiday this year for like a winter break or anything. So I may just give myself some time, and by the way, take some time off if you don't normally take time off. Like, even though the new year technically starts January 1st, we're still in the dead of winter, and nothing in nature blooms year round. Don't expect yourself to be the exact same productivity level and energy level and motivation, inspiration, and all those things. Sometimes you just simply need a break. So I may just end up taking a break. But either way, I'll let you guys know, because we're still going to have a few episodes even if I do take a break. So anyways, as you can see by the title of this week's podcast, I did a Q&A all about my healing journey, overcoming lymphedema, holistic health in general, like how to heal the body naturally. And I got some really, really good questions from you guys. So first of all, one of the best questions that I really, really liked: do you think someone with this condition can heal not being vegan if they have your water? This is so good because, number one, water and diet are obviously foundational to our health. However, I feel like people give so much more importance to what they eat as opposed to what they drink. And it's not like our body is 70% broccoli or kale or protein, even, because right now there's like a huge thing in the health community about protein. And yes, protein is very important. But we're mostly water. And it's like, I feel like people are not paying attention to the right things all the time. And of course, like, nobody teaches us this stuff in school. So, how would somebody know if they don't get educated themselves, like I did going through my own healing journey? But when I first read this question, I was like, what do I think comes down to healing lymphedema, number one? Because everything in the body, when there's a chronic issue, when there's a overburden of toxins and dehydration in the body, it's going to require putting in effort to kind of, for lack of a better word, undo that whole process. But I personally believe that everybody's body is different, and within those differences, I feel like there are some archetypes or characteristics, or even a bundle of characteristics that go together for specific archetypes. So, for example, for me, my body runs really warm, and the fact that I developed a chronic medical condition that had to do with inflammation, a lot of times inflammation and heat are really tied together. Like for me, when I was really struggling the most with lymphedema, it wasn't painful. It wasn't like, I mean, I was pretty tired, I would say, but it wasn't like exhaustion, chronic fatigue like some people have maybe with a thyroid condition or some other things. But it was very, very uncomfortable the higher the temperature was, obviously outside, but then also like that plays a part in your own body's temperature, or at least the perception of your body's temperature. So that's my long-winded way of saying from what I have noticed for my own journey, what I theorize about people who develop lymphedema or even inflammation within the lymph system, stagnation of the lymph system, I feel like there's an imbalance of body temperature. And that's why, for me personally, going raw and going raw vegan and eating very light foods really helped that temperature balance. I don't think I've ever actually talked about this before. And obviously, I still am plant-based. My diet is a little different, which that was actually another question, so I'll get to that in a second. But I think that for somebody to be able to heal something like lymphedema naturally, it is going to require, just like so many other things, balancing your temperature, but above all, anti-inflammation. And I don't know if I would go as far as to say that somebody has to be vegan or plant-based if they are drinking electrolyte reduced water, medical grade electrolyte reduced water, the water that I rave about, that I'm always talking about, that I'm always educating on. Because part of the reason why I decided to go raw was so that I can get extra hydration. And then once I got my machine for the water, I just naturally leaned, I wouldn't say completely away, but just in the direction of cooked foods. And I just noticed that I was a lot better hydrated than even just being raw. Although I will say, just as a side note, being raw, I felt the best. I looked my best. I had the highest amounts of energy. And yeah, things change as you age in life, and as circumstances in your life are different and require different versions of you, different schedules, different amounts of energy output, and things like that. But I loved being raw. And I think that they can heal if they're on the water, but they would need to be on a very strict anti-inflammatory diet and have animal products be a very low percentage of the overall diet. And I've actually even talked with some women that message me, and I always ask about their diet and what it's like to eat certain foods. And most of the time, women will tell me, like, yeah, when I eat lighter foods, when I eat more fruits and vegetables and less, the heavier meats, cheeses, dairy in general, things like that, they do notice less inflammation. And so I think it depends on the body. Of course, everyone is different, and I would never force anyone to eat something that they didn't like, just like I wouldn't want to be forced to eat a certain way. However, with my experience, I think it's really, really important to be on an anti-inflammatory diet, leaning towards fruits and vegetables and fiber in general, and those lighter foods that have a cooling effect on the body. Now, it's not like every single raw food has a cooling effect. Something like ginger does not have a cooling effect, even though it's technically not cooked. But I'm not even going to get into that topic. So that's a very, very long-winded answer for that question. Let me see going on the same topic. Okay. If you went back in time, would you still have eaten only raw vegan for that long? So for context, I was raw. So I went vegan. I went vegan not for any health reasons, just for like the animal ethics side. For the beginning of when I was vegan, I was not eating the healthiest, like pasta, mac and cheese, carbs. I mean, potato chips and Oreos are technically vegan. I mean, unless potato chips have milk powder, but they're, not really good for you, but they are technically vegan. So when I started being vegan, I wasn't healthy. Then I cut out all processed foods and I was whole foods, plant based, without any processed foods. I was still eating cooked foods, things like potatoes, uh, leafy vegetables, broccolis, cauliflower. Um, the wheels are turning here. What else was I eating that was cooked? Different like lentil pasta, chickpea pasta, things like that. So it wasn't like anything crazy. I definitely wasn't eating deep fried food or, heavily baked or roasted oily things, but I was eating cooked foods. And I remember I thought to myself, because I would see people who were raw vegan and I was like, I could never do that. And then I just one day, don't know what it was besides intuition. I was like, I have to go raw. Like, I have to go raw. So when I was whole foods plant based, I was still eating cooked foods. And then I transitioned to high raw. And I would have one cooked meal a day, which was for dinner, which was the same thing. It was like steamed potatoes, broccoli, avocado, any other vegetables that I wanted to just lightly steam. And I'm thinking, did I have any other fats? I would have nuts as fats. But that was pretty much my diet. Like, I would literally eat the same thing every single day. It actually made it very easy. I know that for some people that sounds kind of boring. So I was high raw vegan, and then I went to being fully raw, where I didn't have any cooked foods. It was all raw. And again, I felt incredible. But with being raw vegan, like, you have to maintain a certain level of volume. So I'll get to that when I talk about how my diet has shifted. But to answer the question, yes, I actually would not change anything about my healing journey because I just believe that it all happened the way that it was supposed to. Obviously, like, if I could have gotten the water sooner, I feel like that could have really helped me a lot and I could have helped certain family members. But it is what it is. And I, if anything, wish that I could still be raw vegan, not because I don't feel good or like I feel like I need it, but because I just love raw food. So I still eat a lot of raw foods, but yeah, I would honestly still have eaten raw vegan for that long. It ended up being from the time that I was high raw to completely raw, it was probably like a year, year and a half, maybe even inching on 2 years. All that whole time that my diet was like very, very strict, and I did it because I just knew I needed to. So I the way that I like at the time, because I remember a lot of people would ask me like, don't you ever just want to do a cheat meal, or you're kind of a little too, what would people tell me, you're too what's that word when you're like too far on one end of the pendulum. I don't even remember anymore, but they were like, you're, oh, restrictive. They're like, you're too restrictive. Like, this isn't a healthy diet. And I just knew that that was the diet that I needed to maintain. Like, I just knew because I needed my body to detox. So yeah, I would have still eaten only raw vegan for that long. Okay, let's see. How has your routine changed now? So let's go there. How has your routine changed now? First of all, I still eat a lot of raw foods, juice, raw fruits, smoothies, vegetables, especially greens like lettuce, kale. Those are my top foods that I don't think will ever change in my diet simply because they just make me feel so, so good. So I still drink celery juice. When I was at the like height of my healing journey, I guess you can call it, I was religiously drinking celery juice every single day. And now I still love celery juice. I crave it. I drink it all the time. But I am not as strict with juicing every single day as I was. I'm actually getting, currently right now, I'm getting more in the same level of strictness that I used to be. Just because, again, it made me feel incredible. So I just love feeling that way. What else? What else has changed? My workout regimen is definitely a lot different because at that time when I was at the height of my healing journey, I was doing yoga once a week, which I still do a lot of yoga. Yoga once a week. I was not doing Pilates at that time, and I had a gym membership and I had to walk across my college campus, and I also had a bike, so I would bike across my college campus. But when you're detoxing your body, you don't want to focus on building muscle. That's going to require more protein and, above all, lactic acid buildup in the body in order to grow your muscles. And when you're on a detox protocol, you want to reduce the amount of acidity in your body as much as possible. So my focus with movement and exercise back then, it wasn't even to lose weight, even though I ended up losing like a good 15 or 20 pounds. But it was to sweat, to detox, to make sure my detox pathways were open, and to get circulation moving in the body, to get the lymph moving in the body. So now I do consume a lot more protein than I did back then, and I do want to grow more muscle, because right now my focus isn't detox. My focus is building strength and maintaining muscle as opposed to detoxing. So that's another part of my routine that's changed. Now I do a combination of strength training, which I did actually do strength training before, but it was not heavy. I would just do like 20 pounds for whatever movements I was doing. So now I'm doing heavier lifting, but still nothing crazy. I do Legree Pilates, which is heavy resistance Pilates. It's not like what you see women doing on the mat that's body weight, which is still great, but I like giving a little bit more of a challenge. I love, love, love cardio. I actually used to do cardio not when I was at the height of my healing journey, but when I was in grad school and during the pandemic, I did a lot of cardio, and I love cardio, even though I don't obviously love doing it every single day, burning yourself out. You have to have like a good balance, but I still do cardio. So like HIIT workouts, lots of walking I do now. I would say, depending on the day, honestly, depending on the day and depending on the time of year, but I do a similar amount of walking because I had to walk for my college campus to get around to classes and stuff. And what else am I doing now that's different? Well, I used to do weekly manual, not my own manual, a masseuse, a massage therapy for lymphatic drainage. And I did that every single week up until, honestly, once I started, when was that I dropped? I think it was around the time of COVID. Yeah, it was, because I had gotten my machine and I had started noticing incredible results from the water. We were doing distance everything during the time of the pandemic, and I ended up getting back in touch with one of my old massage therapists, and I was just telling her how great I was doing because she was such a huge part of my healing journey, and I wanted to share that with her, and she was super happy for me. So yeah, I stopped doing weekly lymphatic drainage massage, which is so funny because lymphatic drainage massage now is very trendy, which is great. Like, I think everybody should be doing lymphatic drainage. I had to make sure we were still recording. I didn't want to keep talking and there not being anything recorded. I think it's great that lymphatic drainage is really trendy right now. I still do lymphatic drainage, but of course I'm not going to the massage, so I do it on myself. So right now what I'm doing is probably, and honestly, I was not doing my own lymphatic massage for a while, like for the past like two to 3 years, maybe even more. Yeah, because it's 2024. 3.5 to 4 years, I was not really doing, I mean, I've been doing dry brushing, but not anything consistent like this many times a week for this many minutes. Now, recently, for the past couple of months, I've been doing lymphatic drainage massage with my hands. And I do dry brush when I travel, especially because I feel like it's just easy to have a dry brush in your bag. It doesn't take up very much space. So now I'm doing 20-minute sessions of my own lymphatic drainage right when I wake up, probably a good 3 to 5 times a week. And I want to get really, really consistent with doing it like 5 to even 6 times a week. But sometimes it just doesn't get done because I have a long list of things that I like to do for myself. And if I have a lot of things that I got to do for my business, I don't do every single thing. So I feel like those are the main things with my like regimen and routine that have changed. I also used to do a lot more meditation, and that's actually something that I want to get back to. It's really interesting because I look back and I reflect on how my routine has changed, and I think like at that time when I had this whole regimen, it was for the purpose of getting a result of detoxing, of healing my body, of overcoming this chronic illness. And now it's really just to feel good. It's not necessarily to detox because obviously the way that you eat and the lifestyle in general that you carry, it does make a difference on how much you're detoxing, how much you're resting, how much you're building strength, all of those different things. But a lot of the stuff like I still love doing and I still love maintaining. And that's why I tell people all the time, like, if you are going to go on a healing journey, you got to remember that it's a whole lifestyle switch. It's about who you're becoming. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't realize, because obviously if you've never done it before, you don't really know what goes into it. And that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn for myself, was like, this is a lifestyle change. This is a whole 180 for the comparison of the routine that I used to have and then starting my healing journey. So that's kind of what changed past health goals versus now health goals. This is kind of along the same lines. Right now, my health goals are really building strength. I think building resilience in my body, because when I was growing up, I did ballet and I did dance for like 10 years, but I never did any sports. I never did like super athletic things. I was never like hardcore with working out. I was always on the bigger side. Like I was usually overweight. So I wasn't like the skinny athletic type or anything. But now my health goals are, I want to get really fit and I want to get really strong. And I think that being strong and building strength really does a lot for your confidence that you may not realize if you've never had those habits of exercising and taking care of yourself in that way. But that's my biggest health goal. I mean, obviously, health goals in the past were healing, overcoming a chronic issue, not worrying about inflammation, swelling, and having to do, all of these different things to just get to a quote unquote baseline level. Now it's past that. It's like, how much can I push myself? Like, what is my potential and how can I get to that? I feel like that's my biggest health goal now. What else? What tests did you get done for diagnosis and what did they say when they diagnosed? So, I actually never got like an official paper with a diagnosis on it or anything like super legit. The diagnosis that I got was from a doctor that was in the group of doctors that I was seeing, and she had experience with rheumatoid arthritis patients. And when I was explaining to those doctors that I was seeing at the time what was going on, she was like, this sounds like lymphedema to me. This sounds like that's what it is. And I was like, okay, well, and she wasn't like a lymph specialist or anything. So that's pretty much like where I got with her. And then I think that I had gotten either from her, I'm like, who else could it have been? It had to have been her. I got recommendations for different CTs, different MRIs. I had to do contrast with different IVs and different shakes. And that's the thing that sucks about chronic illness, is getting all of these tests done, not having any clue of if it's going to even show or give you answers. Most of the time you don't really get very many answers, and you do all these tests. It's a lot, like, to have to deal with and to be in and out of different facilities with getting testing and things, insurance companies, always going back and forth with you. So after I got that like loose diagnosis, I did many different tests just to make sure that I didn't have any blood clots, especially in the abdomen. And what else? I did see, now that I think about it, there was somebody that I saw for, no, I don't even want to say the wrong thing because I don't even remember at this point, but I ended up seeing a lymphedema specialist, and by that time, it was already understood and assumed that I was fully diagnosed with lymphedema. So once I saw the specialist, it was like there was no question about it, because once that the first doctor had told me like I think that's what this is, I started researching, me and my parents started researching together, and we were like, yeah, this looks like this is exactly what it is. But I will say that the Western medical system, while yeah, there's so many amazing things in our, you know, acute, if you get into an accident, if you need a surgery or just some like crazy things, we have the best technology for that. And on the flip side of things, when it comes to chronic issues, when it comes to the accumulation of things in the body from different root cause issues that lead to bigger problems, doctors usually just have a blanket term for many different things, and they just give you this like label. They give you this like blanket term. So that was how it went. What else is on this question? What did they say when they diagnosed? They told me that this is something that you're going to have forever, that there's no cure, and pretty minimal treatment, which included the lymphatic drainage, physical therapy, massage. And that was like the biggest the biggest tip or advice that I got. But most of the time it was like, you can't do anything about this and don't even try, and very like disempowering. That was the way that I had always felt. Actually, the first massage therapist that I started seeing, she was local to me, like right in the area that I was used to being in. So that was really good. Then she had ended up retiring, and I started seeing a new physical therapist at a hospital, and I could not do it. I think I had like 3 to 4 or 5 sessions. They were extremely expensive. And I was like, I'm not about to pay for this, and I'm not about to be in a hospital setting where I see this is really sad. But a lot of the people that I saw, they could barely move. They just were very unhealthy. They were very much older than I was, because I was like 19 at that time. So I was super young. I was like, I do not belong here. Like, I should not be around this environment when I know that this issue can be fixed. And I distinctly remember asking the physical therapist at the time, like, can I heal? And she was like, oh, honey, no. And I was like, you'll see. Or maybe you won't see, but I'm going to find out. So then I had went to see my third physical therapist, the one that was very, very supportive of my healing journey, who had both Western knowledge and Eastern knowledge. So she was all about like the holistic natural healing. And I did meditations while I was in my physical therapy with her. It was great. But that's pretty much what they said when I got diagnosed. And I never got suggested any medications, which thank God I never got suggested medications for lymphedema, because there's nothing that you can take as a pill that's going to make your lymph system get better. You have to do the natural things. There's just no way around it. So I never got a pill. I just had to wear, they also said I had to wear compression garments. So for many years, I wore these compression garments literally from my hip right here, like where your thigh and your hip meet, to my toes. And at one point I had to get prescription garments that they specifically customized to your size. You have to get measured and like all these things. And to be honest, like it did not help. I didn't feel any help from the compression, and I was supposed to even wear them to sleep. And I was like, I'm definitely not doing that, because that's going to be so uncomfortable. And I was like, there's no way that I can actually get rest when I'm supposed to be resting with wearing this heavy weighted compression on my leg. So that was what they said. Another question is, did you have any other health issues? So I actually did have hormonal issues with my periods when I was a teenager, like an early teenager. And of course, I got put on birth control. My parents were like, I don't think this is a good idea. This isn't natural. You shouldn't take this. But they let me make my own decision for myself. And of course, the doctors were like, there's no adverse effects. It's totally normal, yada, yada, yada. All the things that they're taught that they don't even know the truth about what they're saying. So that was the underlying one of the underlying health issues that I had, and I actually ended up asking one of the specialists that I saw if they thought that there was a connection between birth control and lymphedema, and the answer was actually yes. So if you're someone who has lymphedema or you struggle with lymphatic congestion and you're on a birth control, there could definitely be a link there. But once I was like very serious about healing, I completely stopped taking birth control and I didn't even experience any issues. A lot of women, when they get off of birth control, they'll have like crazy mood swings or crazy acne or just like a reaction. And my body didn't react too badly. And I think it's because of all the things that I was doing. And I just had this mindset that I'm going to be healthy. Like, I'm going to be a healthy person. So that was like the only thing, but I never had any major surgeries, any hospitalizations, any other health issues. My mom tells me all the time that once she gave birth in the hospital and the pediatrician, they have to like check the child to make sure that everything's okay. The doctor came back and told my mom, like, I looked so hard, but I couldn't find anything wrong. Your baby's very, very healthy. And that's how it was my whole childhood, with the exception of the really bad periods that I had. So those were my other quote unquote health issues. Another question that I got was, where is it? When did you know you were going to heal? I love this question. So the way that it happened was I just started learning thanks to my dad, who had found this book on diet for lymphedema. And it was like an anti-inflammatory diet, basically. And I had just started learning, like, okay, there are things that I can do to support my body with this issue that I have. That was like the first phase of the changes that I made and like the psychology around why I did it. Then I started seeking out other people who had healed from things that were not lymphedema. So I found this one woman who had healed naturally from rheumatoid arthritis. I was finding people healing from like Lyme disease. There was like a few really big ones. It was RA, Lyme. What were the other ones? Those were honestly like the two biggest ones at that time that I had found a lot of stories for. And I was like, okay, this is really awesome. Like, you can do things for your body, maybe not me, but they can. Like, they can heal naturally. And then I remember I found two testimonials of random people on online forums. They didn't even, I don't think they had like even a picture of themselves, but they were like, I healed and this is what I did. And I had lymphedema and I don't have problems with lymphedema or my lymph system anymore. And I was like, that was when I had my breakthrough and I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, if they can do this, I can do this and I'm going to do it. And it was at that point that I had decided. A lot of people who are very successful will talk about like they just made a decision, and that was me. I had made a decision. I'm healing. I am not going to be a victim. I'm not going to have an unhealthy lifestyle. Whatever I need to do to figure this out, I'm going to figure out and I'm going to do it. And I did. And it was really, really rewarding. Another question on here is, did you ever want to give up? Oh my God, yeah, so many times. I wanted to give up so many times. There were so many times where I was like, this isn't going to work. Like, I thought that I could heal, but it's not going to work out for me. I'm going to have these problems forever. And like, the things that I'm doing, they might be helpful, but it's just not going to be like those other people, basically. Those were the moments that my, like, mentally, I would kind of spiral and just think that it wasn't actually going to happen. And I had to pick myself back up. Like we always do, it's okay to fall down as long as you don't stay down, as long as you get back up. And that perseverance and that, like, not taking no for an answer to myself was one of the biggest things that I had to learn. I would say one of the most important parts of my journey was the mental aspect. And I have another question. What's hands down what was the hardest part of your healing journey? And it was 100% the mental. Because once I started making the physical changes, once I changed my diet, once I cut out alcohol, once I started doing more relaxing, more sleeping, less stressing, more meditation and journaling and exercise and yoga, like, yes, it took time to implement those and to do them consistently, but I saw results pretty quickly when I started making physical changes. The mental side of things, you can't see like your brain. You can't, you know what I mean? It's very, very different. So the hardest part was overcoming mentally the identity of a sick person, the identity of someone who does not have their health in control, and even just being told the things that I was told in the medical system of like, oh, you're never going to heal. Like, why would you even think that? Like, this is something you're going to have forever. And just all the things that they attach to you, to your identity. And it's very disempowering. It really is very disempowering. And I had to completely shut that out. And thank God for my physical therapist, the last one that I ended up having, because she was such a great support for me of like, yeah, you can heal. And I remember she would tell me during my sessions where she would play a healing meditation. It was like specifically for healing the body. She would tell me like, you don't have any swelling. There's really nothing for me to be massaging right now. Like, obviously it's still good to do lymphatic drainage even if you don't have lymphatic issues. But she would tell me like, when you're meditating, I don't really have much to do. And that was really, really helpful for me in those times where it was really difficult mentally, because I did have a lot of my friends who didn't understand what I was doing. A lot of people who like literally thought I was crazy, just straight up thought I was crazy. And I didn't care, but sometimes in those moments, like, it was difficult to get through it, especially if I had a trigger or if there was something that like I couldn't maintain in my routine, whether it was a busy time at school or I had to work or I like couldn't sleep or I didn't get adequate rest or like something in my regimen was off and I would get triggered, and then I would physically see the swelling and inflammation, and then I would spiral mentally. And that's why I say it's the hardest thing, because you have to shut off what you see with your eyes and you have to just turn inside. And it really taught me so much about life in general outside of just my health. But like, you have to ignore the circumstances, you have to ignore what you see and create from your mind. And what really helped me with the mental and emotional side of things was watching and learning about Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I would argue he had it way worse than I did, where he was told like, you're going to be paralyzed if you don't get the surgery. He said no to the surgery and reconstructed his spine in his brain for weeks, and then ended up being able to walk because he did it all in his mind, like mind over matter completely. So learning about him and his story and his teachings and the documentary Heal, those things just continuously reinforcing like, I'm the one that creates things and my body is listening to my mind and my brain is ultimately in charge of giving commands and giving instructions to my body. Like, it was definitely a whole process, but I would say that's the hardest thing that I had to really overcome in my journey. This other question, what's hands down the best thing you did to overcome it? The best thing that I did, hands down, the best thing that I did to overcome lymphedema was deciding that I was going to overcome lymphedema. And I know that that's like not the glamorous answer. That's not like the answer that people really want, but that's the truth of it. Because when I made that decision that I'm not going back to the old version of me, the old life that I had, when I decided that I was going to heal, that led me down the path of everything that I needed to do, this quote unquote best thing. It was all the things. It was, you cannot, on any journey, regardless of if it's a health journey, if it's a relationship that you have with another person, if it's a faith journey, if it's a financial or a wealth journey, there's never one single thing that's like, oh, just do this and like, this is the best thing. It's literally a combination. It's always a combination, in my personal opinion, because we are complex. Yes, we are also very simple, but we are also very complex because we have multiple parts. We don't just have a body. We don't just have a brain. We don't just have a spirit. Like, there's so many different aspects of our life. And so I couldn't necessarily pinpoint one thing that was like the absolute best thing, because it all goes together. It's like what I was talking about in the last episode about the things in the modern world that are making you tired and exhausted and unhappy. when I said that all of these things that you can do to combat the modern world, how they all are connected. That's the same thing. Like everything that you do for your health or to get better, to improve your life, to improve yourself in any way, there's multiple things that all coincide and they all go together. And when you start improving this one thing, you're going to start want to improving this other thing. And when you improve this other thing, this third thing you want to all of a sudden start getting better at. You know what I mean? It's you cannot pinpoint just one thing. At least I wouldn't be able to pick. Maybe that's like my own thing, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't pick something. Okay, let's see if I have any other questions here. What would you say to somebody who is currently wanting to overcome lymphedema and heal naturally, but they don't know where to start? Love this question. This is going to be the last question because I feel like this has been quite a long episode. I don't know how long I've been sitting here and talking for, but I would say number one, start with the basic things that you can do on a consistent basis. Now, consistent does not necessarily mean every single day. Consistent means a frequency of time that you can handle doing over and over and over again. So one person's consistency might be every single day. When I started doing celery juice and changed my diet every single day, I didn't have any cheat days. I literally remember my friends like, don't you want to have this thing? Like, it's not going to hurt. Like, you can just have this one time. And for me, it was literally do or die. It was like, you either stay on the path and be very strict or you ruin everything. And I know that that may not sound like the healthiest like mentality, but for me, that's what I needed because I was completely changing everything about how I saw myself, about my health, about my lifestyle. And I just didn't want to do anything differently. Like, I didn't want to have a cheat meal. I didn't want to have like whatever. I literally wanted to keep going down the path that I was on. So that's why I was as strict as I was, but because that was the mentality that I had, and I don't recommend this for every single person on your healing journey, you got to know who you are and how you operate. Because for some people, having that strict of a mentality of like all or nothing, it's detrimental to you. But for me at that time, I just knew that that's what I needed. So figure out what it is that you can be consistent on. Figure out the amount of time that you can be consistent, whether it's every single day, maybe it's 5 days a week, maybe it's 3 days a week, or maybe when you first start, it's literally 1 day a week of like cooking a meal that is plant-based or cooking a meal that is anti-inflammatory. I would say start with diet, reducing stress, including sleeping and making sure you're getting adequate rest, and moving your body. Because when you move your body, it's going to hit many different points. If you can get to the point of sweating, if you can do things that will promote weight loss, because a lot of people who have lymphedema, there is extra weight on the body, and that's going to also weigh down, no pun intended, weigh down the lymphatic system. So diet, how can you be consistent with your diet? By eating cleaner foods, aka not eating processed junk, eating things as close to nature as possible, and really those fresh foods, those are what you're going to want to consume. Making sure that you're sleeping, making sure that you're doing things not to be productive or for any result, but really just for the pure enjoyment of it because you're alive and you want to celebrate being alive. And then exercise. That's what I would recommend to start. And with the diet, if you really want to take it a step further, start juicing, and especially celery juice. Like, I really recommend celery juice to anybody who has lymphedema because I'm telling you what it does to your body and the way that you feel. It's just so good. Even if you don't like celery, because that was me. I drank it for a month straight. I had to plug my nose. And then after that month, I was like, I love this. And I would wake up craving it. So that's my recommendation if you're looking on where to start with your healing journey. But again, if you decide that you want to do this, that you want to heal your body, whether it's lymphedema or not, that's going to lead you down the path. Every single little breadcrumb, like I like to call it, every single breadcrumb is leading you towards your goal. And everything that you do, that you experiment with, or that you are consistent with, the learning that you're going to get is going to also take you to the next step. You know what I mean? So start there. If you are somebody that you can't do the all or nothing, don't do the all or nothing mentality. Do meet yourself where you're at, have grace for yourself, but also recognize that you are changing your identity and you are changing the lifestyle that you're living and who you are. And even just identifying with something as small as I have lymphedema or my lymphedema. I would say that all the time, like my lymphedema. And it literally gets ingrained in your brain, and then all of your cells are eavesdropping on your thoughts, and then your cells are like, oh, the command is to have lymphedema. Okay, lymphedema. It's very simple. Like, it is very, very simple. So that's what I would recommend. I would love to do another one of these episodes. If you guys have more questions, please DM me on Instagram. And I will also do another topic with Q&A. I don't know what the topic is going to be yet. We're going to have to see. Maybe it will be my business or social media or something. But if you follow me on Instagram, that's the best way to get any of my updates. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Earth Game Podcast, and I'll see you next week for another one.